At Park Bank, we believe drive and ambition come from the deepest parts of who we are. We view achievement not as a selfish pursuit, but as a way to improve the lives of our clients, our associates, and our neighbors. We believe ultimately ambition is driven by the heart. We've grown considerably since our start as a small community bank on Park Street, and yet we've always understood that our success depends on the success of others. Our story of ambition starts right here, in the hearts of every member of our team. Our backgrounds may be different, but our values are the same. We believe in giving more than we take, that we are more successful together, and that collaborative spirit and drive are inherent in all of us. Some of our greatest pride comes from collaborating with local entrepreneurs to build vibrant businesses that make Dane County unique. We take the time to build lasting relationships and provide exceptional service grounded in shared values. Together, we bring ambition to fruition. We're privileged to work with local causes, volunteering our time and resources to make a difference in the lives of people who make our home a place unlike anywhere else. By giving back, we all move forward. As far as we've come at Park Bank, we don't ever stop at good enough. We're always looking for the next challenge, the next opportunity, the next accomplishment. Together, we can get there, anywhere, from right here. Park Bank. Let's get to next.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. We have an excellent panel discussion that's going to get underway here shortly. I wanted to start off with just a couple quick facts. According to DCF, which is the Department of Children and Families, the number of family providers in Wisconsin fell nearly a quarter, going from 2,644 to just under 2,000. So providers between 2015 and 2021 have dropped drastically. The average family provider has about 5 children to care for in the home. That equals about 60 hours per week, and their net income is just under $1,800 per month, which is equivalent to just over the state's minimum wage, which is not right. And this is a huge problem we need to figure out. In turn, in September of 2021, the U.S. Treasury called our current system of childcare unworkable, as the market for quality care is out of reach for many families. These are some of the issues that we're going to talk about today. And again, we have a great set of panelists. I'm going to let them introduce themselves right now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. Marcus Allen. I am the pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church, and I'm thankful to be on this panel discussion today.
Thank you, Marcus.
Hello, my name is DJ Hines. I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, representing Christian Faith Fellowship Church. I am the Chief Operations Officer and the Executive Pastor.
Thank you so much, DJ.
Hello, everyone. My name is I am Pastor Pedro Ruiz, Senior Pastor at Casa de Fe, House of Faith, former Iglesia Restauración y Vida, and I am thrilled to be here today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you as well. Thank you so much to the panelists. We're going to dive right in. As we're going through questions, again, this is going to be an open conversation. So for all of you that are listening, if you have a question or we're on a topic that you're very passionate about, please feel free to write in the comments and we'll make sure to touch base on those. I'm going to come right back to Pedro to start this first question. And the question is, how do we create a system of quality care that pays workers with competitive wages and keep prices affordable for all families?
Well, that's a good question, but at the same time, a tough one to answer, because you're trying to balance, lowering the cost for the families, but at the same time, having competitive wages, and that's kind of a tough spot to be in. However, the primary federal child care program, the Child Care Development Block Grant, only provides subsidy, because we got to talk about subsidy. Somewhere in there, it has to be a subsidized to be able to, put that part that the families are not going to be able to afford to, in order to lower that cost. So the subsidy has to be there, and they only put a 15%, 50% of kids who are eligible for it, and tens of millions of families that are struggling are not eligible. So that takes, hard, it's hard for the families to be able to move forward on that. Plus, the program does not help adequately or boost wages for childcare workers or provide more options for families. So, yes, there is something there, but I think it's not enough. But, there's something, something more than that needs to be, this is a problem that affects our economy, because the families are not able to afford it, therefore they might not be able to go to work. And if they're not going to be able to go to work, then businesses are going to suffer because of that. So it's just, it affects one thing after the other one. Then the child care provider will not be able to succeed or be able to hire more people. So giving parents across the country more freedom to choose the child care option that, is right for them is one of the things, giving the parents, a choice that they can say, well, this child care services is better than mine, including, and those providers should be in-home care providers, and should also be, faith-based organizations that might be able to pinch in with helping on that area, and obviously partially subsidized by the federal government, in some kind of fashion, to be able to make it affordable for families, but at the same time make it appealing for providers to be able to either open up new places or being able to hire. I think one of the, in-home cares, that has dropped because of the whole COVID thing. Now it's, people are going back to work. People are going back to, the regular duties, as everything starts coming along again. So a lot of those fundings will help those in-home providers to be able to provide those jobs, and as well as for the families that are, struggling in that end. Just like we have helped the businesses during the pandemic, and we have put millions of dollars to boost the economy in that end. I think, if we don't boost this area, it's going to hurt everything else, the same, because the problem that, will not go away, not by ignoring the situation. And I think that, that has been happening. It's been put a lot of effort in different other areas, and we have lacked to put effort in this area. We all have families, majority of us have kids, and this area is lacking because nobody, you give millions of dollars to and I'm not saying you can't and you shouldn't, you're giving millions of dollars to the businesses, and that's good. But if the businesses have no worker, then you're stuck. And if the businesses have no people that are taking their kids to be taken care of, then you got nobody to care for. So, you have to go back to the roots, if we can say that, and start helping the working American, the working families, that are struggling financially, and see, the thing is that the families that look for those type of care, child care is families that is the middle class, is the people that are making the economy move. It's not, the upper class, is the working class that is needing those, and then those are the same ones that are making not enough money to be able to pay for that child care. So, it's all somehow that's where the situation, and we've been ignoring it for too long, and it has gone to where we are right now. And something needs to be done, because parents, can't afford child care. That means less worker, and that means in the industry suffered. The economy suffers because of that. So this is not only a problem for those who have kids, but it affects us all. Eventually it will affect everybody if we don't start taking care of it now.
Right. So I also think it deals with economics too. That definitely you're going to need people wages increase in order to increase the child care facilities, because when COVID first hit, my church, we went around knocking on doors trying to see how can we help feed kids who would normally not get a school meal. And what we saw was, knocking on doors, many of the kids were at home by themselves. So initially what we was trying to say, hey, we're going to pick you up, take you around the corner and get you a meal from one of the schools' lunches provided by MMSD. And then we'll bring you back home. Now they'll open the door, they'll come to the door, but they wouldn't get in the vehicle with us because mom is at work. They're at home by themselves. And so I think definitely we can figure out how to increase competitive wages for individuals, then we can increase healthcare wages too. Because it's here living in Madison and Dane County, HUD suggests you need to make at least $15 an hour just to be able to afford rent in this area. And when these kids, when these families don't have enough from one job, the minimum wage is what, $7.25, $7.50 when minimum wage. So they have to take on two jobs just to get to $14.50 an hour. And so when they take on those two jobs, then it leaves children raising children. And I've seen so many parents suggest, my child was good until I had to get a second job. And when I got that second job, I wasn't to be at home with them. And then they got in the streets. And so I think if we can help increase wages, the minimum wage, it'll definitely help us to be able to create competitive wages for healthcare. Not healthcare, quality care workers for our children and their families. So I think that's definitely a focus that that we need to focus on.
Yeah, and I think that both you, Marcus, and Pedro, I think you all really covered the basis here. And in my mind, in addition to what you all are saying, is really that we have to prioritize family and community. And until we prioritize family and community, it will continue to be less of a priority. Because, I think Pastor Marcus, you said it eloquently, in a capitalistic world, that's what it's about. It's about the capital. It's about the economics. And for decades, family has fallen to the wayside as a result. And, from a prioritization to a cross-sectional collaborative effort, it's going to take more than just government. It's going to take more than just the workforce. It's going to take more than just the tech piece. It's going to take a collaborative effort across many sections to really provide an opportunity for families to make a wage and to continue to raise their families in a healthy way.
A lot of great points there. DJ, I'm going to actually come right back to you. And you're mentioning all these different parts that are going to have to start moving in all of our communities. How do we get each one of these separate entities and groups of people to start to make that needle move a little bit? What are some of those first steps we need to take to get the community and the families on board?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, to get anyone to move in any direction is we have to identify the need, and we have to make the need important to those spaces. Because as long as our needs are met selfishly, then there's no real urgency to move in any direction at all. So I think we have to identify the need and the benefit to moving in a direction that is more supportive to family. And I think secondly, we have to further stress the importance of partnerships. working in ministry, the church can't do it alone. And we understand that government can't do it alone. So there's, and the workforce can't do it alone. So we know that there's always opportunity for partnerships. And what a partnership says is that there's a huge piece of this puzzle that I have, but I don't have all of the pieces. But there is a huge piece that you have. How about we come together to build, to complete this puzzle and to really meet a common goal? So I think, again, we have to, put some urgency behind the need. And then from that, we have to build strategic partnerships.
And take it into a community approach. I think that's important. Not only a one size fits all, or one group can fix it all. We all, like DJ said, we all play a part in this. And unless we get together and start working as a unit, in that community, everybody, pitches in whatever, the other one can or won't be able to, that's the only way we're going to get ahead and start, getting some results in this.
Yeah, that's a great point. Starting with the community first, growing out to the local areas, and then figuring out where can some of these leaders statewide help provide some support into our community. But we need to first have a clear idea of what is the main issues, what's the first area of attack for us. Reverend Dr. Marcus Allen, you want to chime in a little bit of what this looks like for your community?
Right, definitely. As stated, how do we really address the need? How do we really look at the need and see what will be the best course of action to address the need? And oftentimes we, even me, government leaders, we see an issue in it and we just automatically try to jump to a solution without strongly thinking it through, without strongly taking the time to figure out who are the key players, who are the stakeholders, who is this affecting the most? How can we involve the families that we're talking about, right? Often we don't even bring the people to the table we're trying to provide help to, even though they can be the best ones to tell us the need that must be addressed. And so I think that's the healthcare, the childcare piece is very essential. My wife and I, we was in the United States Army. Both of us served in the United States Army. And we had childcare on the Army base, and based off our rank, we couldn't afford it, right? And both of us are non-commissioned officers in the United States Army, and a service that's being provided by the United States Army. We couldn't afford it at our pay and everything else that we had. So we had to go off post to a lady we call Nanny, somebody grandmother, and she provided the care that we needed for our children, and it was best for us. So we got to figure out what's best for. Can't think about each individual, but in subgroups or groups of people. How do we really connect with people who are going through this, and then how do we make them comfortable and feeling as if we're really helping them and not just an issue, but actually looking at people and trying to help people rather than just the issue.
Yeah, that's a lot of great points, and thank you for your service. It's disappointing to see that more is not provided, considering what you and your wife do. Right. On a national level. And that was actually the next spot I was going to get into. Is obviously the main point for us is figuring out who are the stakeholders, what are their issues, how are we going to help them specifically, building community, figuring out then statewide, but then ultimately there's other support and options that need to come nationally. Who are some of those leaders that you think we need to be in communication with that can help us on a national level?
Well, I think first we got to create some kind of awareness. People, I think this would be on the, it has affected us all, but nobody has stepped up and created that awareness. build up the momentum and tell people and try to figure out, tell people what's going on. And it starts in the community level, on the local level, and then it moves up from there, statewide and nationally, but awareness without doing something, it's a waste of time. So it has to be some kind of plan to create awareness. And then after, creating that awareness, bring some kind of, different solutions or type of what can we do, by creating policies that will provide better pay, like Marcus was talking about, initiative, for childcare workers, as well as, to secure funding and subsidize the cost to the childcare, for the working family. So we, that's what it's, we all got to get involved. This is not a one-man thing or a one-stop shop. We all got to do our part and so we heard and something start happening, because unless some kind of policy and the policymakers start hearing what's going on and we start creating that awareness and pushing, so there's some kind of change, things will keep on going the same way, so, it starts at the community, then local level, then statewide, then nationwide, but we got to somehow create awareness and move to some kind of plan to create the policies that will make those changes.
That's a great point. DJ, for you in Milwaukee, I want to hear your opinion on this and creating awareness.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with Pedro, is that, at the political level, there are certain limitations. There's a lot of red tape. But really, the politicians, their responsibility is to the community and to the people, to their constituency. So the community has to take charge and has to take lead on the changes that we want to see happen in our communities, whether it be, with the churches, whether it be with the business owners, whether it be with the educators, and so on and so forth. We have to, raise the bar of expectation and put a command on our leadership, on our political leaders, to start to move the needle and change. I don't think, as long as we're quiet about it, as long as it's not a quote unquote problem, then they'll never try to search for a solution. So I agree 100% with Pedro's response in that it's about raising that awareness, raising that flag, and getting the community leaders behind the situation.
Which actually leads into my next question here.
And that has, sorry, Ryan, and that has happened a lot with the minority community. We stay quiet for too long. And then when we burst, is because there's already the issue is right on our heads. And it's at the point that we burst is when it's uncontrollable. Let's start working, before it gets to that level. Let's not stay quiet. Let's start working, because like DJ said, they see it as it's not my problem. Unless we bring it up, it's not my issue, and we with the people, we all, I pastor a church, Marcus does as well, and we are within the community. And that's the informational line that has to get up there. And that's what the awareness is so important. So,
yeah, I think being proactive instead of having to always be reactive is definitely a huge issue for us and something we need to think about. And that's where the next question comes in. What are some community-based initiatives that should be amplified and supported to help with this crisis, to help bring that awareness so we can start moving forward? And I'm going to come to Marcus for that.
Right. As stated before, and as Pedro said, the community know what it needs. And oftentimes other people are making those decisions for those communities without even consulting the community. And so the initiatives, one, again, going back to discovering the need. And let me say this publicly, I feel convicted by being on this panel because I haven't really taken a deep look at what is that actual need for even the people within my church, my community. Now, of course, we offer after school programming, but what about those people who need before school, or parents who need during work, or even night hours in which they work, but they need somebody to watch their children. And so I think discovering the need, seeing where it's most, and it be amplified and supported by trusting the people who are doing it. And oftentimes we don't trust the people who's already doing the work. I think Kaleem is doing a great job with One City. And he also have early childhood. And I think that's coming down to another one of your questions, but it's not just babysitting kids. We want to put our kids in places where they can learn how to read and write, because those first formative years when our children are really are becoming sponges and picking up everything that they hear. And so when we have kids who are 2 years old and cussing, it's only because they heard somebody else say it and they watched something else. But what about providing actual spaces for kids to actually learn and not just be getting nap time and snacks, but also for them to learn. So I think that needs to be the push, especially for minority kids. I think that definitely need to be the push for us to focus on how do we put them in learning environments at young ages where they can actually begin to learn and not just be babysitted.
I agree. Back to the need, and when you start, peeling back the layers of community-based initiatives, there's so many out there. I think Wisconsin, and I don't quote me on this, but I think we have one of the highest numbers of nonprofit organizations in the country. We're one of the leaders. I know that for sure. So, I don't think that there is a lack of community-based initiatives. Once we identify the space that it is that we either want to work in or donate to or amplify, then, there are opportunities out there. I think the problem with the community-based initiatives is that there aren't enough resources to properly source the vast amount of organizations that need resources. So what I find is that you have all of these organizations going to the same pots, trying to get their programming funded, which ultimately puts a handful and several of these organizations outside of where the resources are, just because simply there's just not enough to go around. And you have your anchor organizations, for example, you have your Boys and Girls Club, who's been doing a phenomenal job. You have the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, who's been doing a phenomenal job. So you have a lot of your anchor organizations who've been doing great jobs, but then you have some of your micro organizations, and I call them micro just because due to the size of what they do, their reach can only go so far, but they're doing a phenomenal job. And 365 actually highlighted one of them and its leadership not too long ago, which was, for example, Hope Street, under the leadership of Ashley Thomas, who's the executive director. Basically, they take displaced families and send them through, classes. And it's not a shelter. They call themselves a greenhouse for people. So they develop people, they develop children, they develop character, and they get people back in position to be healthy citizens in society again. Now, that type of organization, you would think that funding wouldn't be an issue. Like, they would get all of the money that they need purely based on the work that they do. And you're able to visibly see the change that they're making in the community. But yet and still, they're fighting and competing for some of the same dollars. So I think that from a community initiative standpoint, there are a bunch of people out there doing really good work. But the issue is that they don't always have access to the funding. So I think if there's a way for us to not only amplify some of these micro organizations, but they need exposure to the right people. And that's one of the things that, I personally try to do, is introduce people who I know have certain passions about certain things that will give, but it's just off their radar. Like, I didn't know that they were doing this great work, in the inner city of Milwaukee, in the 53206, one of the worst zip codes in the state of Wisconsin. I didn't know they were doing this work here. But once they have the knowledge of it and they're able to actually see the work, then they'll say, hey, this is something that I want to support. So I think we have to do a better job of making sure that we create pipelines to some of our smaller community initiatives that are doing big work.
And I think one of the areas you touched on, which always gets me going, is what are those action items? You know, we can talk all day and you know, mention different problems in communities and for families, but until we actually have a clear action plan of how we're going to attack this, we're not really moving that needle per se. So I think that's the next real big step, is what's our first action item so we can start this domino effect to create change.
Yeah, I always tell people, you know, when you start to stack the problems of the world, your city, the community you're in, you know, that becomes a bottomless pit almost, you know, because once you fix one problem, there's another one waiting. So for me, I always say, let's identify with, first of all, where we are, and let's identify with what we can do. And when I say we, I mean, with what we have right now, with the people, the individuals that support what we do, and without asking anyone for anything, let's identify what we can do. Because what I notice is that when you start with what you have and you start addressing problems that your organization can address without the help of outside entities, then other people want to start to help you as well. They see, oh, wow, you've done this by yourself. You've been doing this. Perfect example. We've done a program called We Give Milwaukee. And basically what that is that we try to meet some of the fundamental needs of people. So, of course, feeding people is one piece, clothing people is another piece, making sure that kids have technology for school is another one. So basic needs, we've partnered to give kids swimming lessons. We've partnered to give kids eye exams so that they have glasses. So again, basic needs. And we've been doing this since 2015. Someone finally took notice of what we were doing and say, hey, I want to help people who have transportation challenges getting to and from work, right? So buying vehicles is something that we wanted to do since the beginning of We Give Milwaukee, but we just didn't have the resources to do that yet. But we started with what we had, and we started to do this on a consistent basis, and someone took notice. And now they are helping us fund vehicles for people who have transportation challenges getting to and from work. So I think that when you start with what you have, with where you are, it doesn't have to be, you know, the car thing is something that we've wanted to do, but we didn't have to start there. We started with what we had. We want to put people in homes at some point. And I believe that as we continue to do what we do, someone will help us do that as well. So that's where I think everyone, regardless if you're just a community leader in your neighborhood, clean up the neighborhood, you know, just pick up the trash. You know, that's making change, because the environment around you affects who you are and affects how you feel, and which can affect what you do. So I think we all have a role to play, and we don't have to get overwhelmed by all of the challenges, but I think we can all start with something based on who we are, who we have access to, and just kind of build and grow from there.
Wow, that's definitely powerful stuff. And my wife teases me when we go on walks, because I always take my little garbage picker and I pick up trash in our community, in our little cul-de-sac area. And I think when other people see good things happening, they want to also be a part of that. So you create the environment around you that you want to be a part of. So we did have a question come in from the audience, and I wanted to touch base on that. And I was hoping, Pedro, you could answer the question here. It was going to be one that we spotlighted here about COVID. It's just the new normal that we live in. It's changed everything within our worlds. Obviously, us on this virtual meeting, this would have potentially been an in-person event. So it's changed a lot of things for us. And they want to know, has this made the care crisis worse or better?
I will get into the question real quick, but, you know, one of the things that I want to pick it all back up of what DJ said, you know, when we start, you know, addressing what we can address, that brings other people, you know, we bring attention to the problem, the situation, and we're not just creating another problem by just telling people and not working on a solution. Just a quick note, we started a homeless program because we saw the need. Nobody was helping us. There was no funding coming from nowhere. And we said, well, cold weathers, below zero, when we started at 30 below and 20 below, those are dangerous weather. So we started a program, and, people started donating. People that we didn't know started giving money so we could, or bringing clothes, or bringing blankets, or whatever it was. They will drop it off our doorsteps at the church, so we can help other people. We started getting calls and people wanted to help. Also, restaurants started donating. Different restaurants started donating food. Chick-fil-A's donated for one night. Culver's donated another one. So you start getting other organizations started getting involved because somebody started doing it. And this is not just. And it's not my idea. It was, the churches, the group, the church that we were doing. So, you got a, group that starts doing something, and then all of a sudden you get all this help from different areas. So, it's a great to start doing something what you have, and, other people have the same heart, and they will start chipping in, and, stuff will move forward. So on the question that is asked, has the pandemic made, care crisis worse or better? Well, it's obviously has made it worse. It was there. It has made it more apparent, more, it has been more in your face, because now, we have this other issue that has come along that, with the pandemic, that has made things worse, or created a different set of difficulties. And that as well, it has done both, in my opinion. It has made it, the situation a lot harder for people, and worse. And also it has created different type of difficulties. For example, if you see now, first they didn't have no jobs and everybody was at home when the pandemic started. And now they both have to go out and work. Because now they're backed up in bills, they're backed up in different other areas, and they have to make ends meet. So they, it has made the problem worse. Not only that, but, sometimes, the pandemic has created situations at home between mom and dad that now mom and dad can't be together because, they don't get along anymore because of being together for it just raises up so many issues that have come up after the pandemic. And we see it, as community leaders, as people that work with the community, that this the pandemic has raised different issues. They might have been all along, but now they're more apparent, and we have to address them. So I think it has made it worse, one, and two, it has underlaid a lot of other different set of difficulties that now people are confronted with. So
I think it's both, right? I think COVID has made a lot of things worse and better. I think parents, or a lot of middle class, have opted for that remote job, where they can work from home, where they can be with their children, and they don't have to worry about child care. And that's a help for the family, but it's also a strain on those child care facilities. So I think also it's just people are approaching life totally different now. That everything don't have to be in person like we're doing now, right? People just looking at how can we do things more from the house? How can we do things more without coming in contact with people? How can we make things easier with technology? And I think we saw that COVID, that it was a need for childcare, right? At our church, let me speak from my personal experience first. I was at home trying to pastor a church. I was being a teacher to my kids, and that math was jacking me all the way up. I had to be the cook and be the parent, and I'm in this house, right, with everything, nowhere to go, but just here and having to trying to accommodate the best that I can, especially with my children when it came to their schoolwork. So because I have school-age children, but it was many parents who couldn't stay at home. They had to work outside of the home. They couldn't because they had the low wage paying jobs. And we go back to that, where they had the low wage paying jobs where they couldn't work from home. Now, I look at that for me now as a privilege that I was able to work from home, where I have other parents who still have to go to the grocery store, to still have to go to the hotel or the restaurants and work at those places where they, and if they didn't go, they didn't get paid. Whereas some are on salary. And if you don't come, you still get paid. And where we have hourly wage workers who need the childcare so much more. So I think pandemic intensified in certain areas and improved for some people's lives and intensified for others. But what we did at our church, we opened up the church and allowed kids to come to the church and be at our church, what we call School Without Walls, where kids were able to come to the church. We provided Wi-Fi and tutors, and parents were able to drop them off. And so many parents thanked us because not only did it help them be able to go to work, but it helped them mentally. Well, they ain't have to worry about that schoolwork. I'm telling you, if you ain't have school age children during that time, you wouldn't know. But it worked. It helped those parents to be able to do the work, do their work on their jobs, and not have to worry about their children not receiving food, not receiving that proper education, not receiving the proper childcare that they needed. And so I think it really intensified for some, and then it helped others to say, hey, I was just watching on the news, and mom was like, hey, I decided I'm going to be remote. I'm gonna work. I'm living in New York, but I'm gonna work for a company in Tulsa, and I'm gonna get up in the morning, early in the morning, do my work so I can be with my child throughout the day. So that's the difference that we can that we see now. But the intentionality of the parents and of the homes, I think it stressed out a lot of people. Like I said earlier, that many homes around my church didn't have that privilege like I had to be able to stay at home and work, and they had to go outside the home to work, but leave their children at home by themselves because they didn't have the childcare. The school was that at that time, right? School took care of the children, and then the schools closed down. They didn't have that. So I think it intensified it for some, and then it improved it in a different way for others. And I think that's a lot of what COVID has proven to us.
Yeah, wow, that's that's a lot going on, and especially like you had mentioned for those school age students. Like we're all fathers here on this panel, and that's going to bring me to another point. And people of color, especially here, why it's important for men like us to be involved with our children's care. DJ, I'm going to come to you because we haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Man, that's we could have done the whole conversation on that. So, I'll just touch on it briefly, and because I would definitely want to open up the microphone to Pedro and Marcus as well. But when you talk about the importance of just the father figure in the home, you start to talk about a dynamic that creates a healthy environment for that child. Because I believe that parenting is a mother-father job, because there are things that the father brings to the home that the mother simply can't, and there are things that the mother brings to the home that the father simply can't. So I think that when you talk about creating balance, balanced upbringing, a huge part of that balance is having the influence of the father and the mother. And furthermore, when you talk specifically about the care, I think there's a huge opportunity for bonding when you start to talk about a father caring for their child. I have two girls. One is 9 and one is 12. I have a son who is, my son is 12 My middle daughter is 9. My youngest daughter is 5. And, you know, some of the greatest bonds that have taken place between myself and my daughters has come through, you know, caring for them and being there at home, cooking, and, you know, even trying to do hair. You know, I don't know if you all know the infamous hair story, but I was trying to do my daughter's hair, and my brother was videotaping it, and that video went viral. And directors saw it and wrote a movie about it, a short movie called Hair Love, and it won an Oscar. But that all came from a father being at home to care for his children. So I think, you know, it speaks to balance. It speaks to bonding. And I just think it speaks to healthy development overall. So I'll pass on to Marcus now.
Myself, growing up in a single family household, I understand the trauma of not having a dad in the house. And I commend our moms, right? Especially minority moms, where I think it's like over 70% of our kids are raised in single family households. These women are strong. They're leading and they're the lowest paid. And so oftentimes when you see like basketball players, NFL players, they make it to the league, what's the first thing they say? I'm buying my mama a house, right? Because they know the sacrifice that they've seen. But I think it's very important for men, fathers, to be in the life of their children. My whole life, I still live with that trauma because I'm always trying to prove to my dad that I was worth sticking around for. And that's a trauma that I'm still dealing with now, even though my father been dead since 2014. But that's still every move that I'm making, every goal that I'm setting is a pursuit to prove him that I was worthy enough to stick around. So that alone is what that I call trauma for me. I can't speak for anyone else. And so the passion that I have for my children is to never miss anything. I love serving the Lord, and I love the church, right? I'm talking about church. You brought me on, and I'm a Baptist preacher. And I love serving the church, but they understand that my family comes before that church, because the church was established in Genesis. The family was established in Genesis. The church wasn't established to Acts. God sees the importance of family. He sees the importance of father and mother being in the lives of their children. And we see that throughout the whole entire Bible. And then the Bible also says, if you can't take care of your family, you're a vagabond, which means you're worthless if you're not willing to take care of your family and be there for your family. So that's my intention in life, to always allow my children to feel the love that I give them, to always be there for them. Like DJ was saying, I ain't get the movie or nothing, but I was jacking up some hair. My wife was, we both was in the Army, and my wife left for 30 days. I have no clue, no abilities of hair. So I was taking my daughter to daycare, and I just dropped off the whole kit, the whole hair. You know, they keep everything in one little bag or container. I just drop off the whole thing. And that's challenging. But the father being there is so important, because, as DJ said, it offers a balance to what the children are able to see. It offers a balance of father and motherly love, because it's different. And me and my wife, we do things differently, but we all both are looking for the same objective. So I think it's very important for that child to see both parents in their lives, if possible. But I do take this moment to commend all the single parents and single moms and dads who are doing the work. I think that's very important to commend them also.
I also think, that it's, the modeling that we do as husbands, as men in the home, that's all picked up by the kids. And so that's, not only being, there, but, that what we do is so important, what they see us do, and children benefit from a close relationship with their parents. I have 3 boys. I have a 14, a 12, and a 7, all boys. And, here I don't have to do hair, but I do have to play 3, 4, 5 different sports, and be good at it too, in order to keep up with them. So there's football, there's soccer, there's baseball, basketball, you name it, we do it. And you have to be running from one place to another, coach one, and then help the other one with something else. I have never played soccer in my entire life. And my son, my youngest, loves it. So I watch YouTube videos and I start, back there and, start kicking balls with them and try to figure out. So this, getting involved, this includes great, the benefits the kids in different areas, and there's studies about this, better grades in school, school completion, high school cognitive development, is better when the father figure is there and the parents are both together. The mental health issues lower at a dramatic scale when the parents are there. Delinquency, you see it goes off the roof when percentages when the father figure is not there, especially in sons. Of which it will help to lead them to a better and more successful future. We are building the future. Sometimes we say, how can I change society? Stay home, be with your wife, be with your family. We want to change the world. We can't change our families. You can't change the world if you're not willing to change your family and change your ways. One of the things is, if you don't change yourself, we want to change the world and make this all things happening. But if we don't change ourselves first, and be willing to, stay at home, be with my kid, be with my wife, and here I am preaching, but it's just, the thing is that, family is the first thing, just like Marcus said, the most important thing for God is family. And we have put that at the least important thing, and everything else is important and worthy. And our families don't make it to our calendar. We have a calendar full of 20 million things that we can't even do. And our families never make it there. The other day I was playing around with my kids, and my son, my oldest, grabbed my son and I said, "Hey, puppy, you have in here, family time. We're in your calendar?" I was like, "Of course, you're important. Anything and everything that's important should be in a calendar, and you guys are in mine." Of course, there's more time that I spend with them, but I want to make sure that I have set times, and that we don't do that sometimes as men, and it's important. And see, the only good thing for children in their future, as we start working with them, this is good for the future, and it's also good for the men. Listen, some studies have shown that men who are involved with their children themselves, the parents, the father figure, not the kid. Now, I'm not talking about the kid. This is good for the father too. The father tends to live longer because they have been involved with their kids. They are more likely to take care of their health issues because they want to be there for their kids and live longer and enjoy life with them and be able to play sports longer. Myself, I like to stay in shape because I love sports, and I want to make sure I'm able to run, and I'm not, with my knees all blown up and not being able to do things with them. So, are less likely to engage in risky behavior like smoking, drinking, and violence. Why? Because you're giving that example and you're there with your kids. So, this is not only good for the children, but it's also good for the father figure. This is benefits in both ways, and obviously for the family and the relationship. And I'll shut up.
Well, there's so many benefits. I think all 3 of you gentlemen touched on it. And I come from a similar area where my dad was in prison when I was 4 or 5. I don't really remember much of him, and he passed away in there. And now that I'm a father, I'm trying to find ways that I can bond with my sons and be a present dad. And that was one of the non-negotiables with my wife. I think it's so important for us, regardless of what our communities and cultures say is the norm. We need to find ways to be better for our families, and that then moves out to more areas. I do want to let us know that we are getting close to ending. I want to make sure that we answer one of the questions that came from the audience. So DJ, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Are your communities feeling the economic gaps getting wider due to difficulties in finding childcare?
That's a really interesting question. I think that it obviously was worse 6 months ago than it is now, only because, you know, schools are back open and there are other regular opportunities for people to find childcare. But I will say that there are still challenges there purely due to the expense associated with childcare. And that's been going on for as long as I've entered the workforce. That's been a challenge. So I don't think that challenge has necessarily increased or changed in the recent past, but I do think that it is an ongoing factor. I know even for entrepreneurs, I have a family where they both are entrepreneurs. They both have their own businesses. And, you know, it used to be one parent would work more hours than the other while the other stayed back with the child. But now that they're both running their own businesses with 3 small children, childcare has become a challenge. So I think that it's an ongoing challenge. And I think it takes us back to the beginning of our conversation from a standpoint of, I don't think this is going to change until it's a priority to those who are in positions of power to really force the change.
Yeah, I think like most families have to make that decision. Should get another job or should another spouse work and then send the kids to daycare, or let the spouse stay at home? Because if they go to work, that whole check going to childcare. And so that's a challenge that I think many families have faced and continue to face even after COVID, and this economic gap that's somehow is getting wider and not closing as much.
Yep, I think it's, getting wider, because in childcare, sometimes it doesn't mean I have talked to people in the church, and, they said, "Hey, Pastor, I don't know if I should go to work or not." And, this is what's going on. And they bring up the numbers, and I'm like, if they go to work, the whole paycheck what they will have is more time outside of home, doing something else besides cooking, washing, and doing whatever they do at home. That is important too, but the money will be gone to paying for childcare. So you're basically transferring from your account to pay childcare. So it doesn't make sense. I just want to, touch up on this last thing. And, if you guys ever do one on the last question we had, I think we can talk on that one, how important the man involvement in our families is. I think we can talk in there for hours, because there's so much we can talk about that. And for so long, we as men has, drive up that to the woman, to the wife, and not being a present part. And I think this new generation and us need to focus more on that. And so if you guys ever do one on that, man, I would love to be a part of that panel.
Yeah, that I think you all said it well, that could be an entire panel discussion that we could have, and it would be extremely important for all of our communities and all of our people to hear that. We are getting close to wrapping up, so I just wanted to first say thanks to all 3 of our panelists. You guys did an amazing job. Obviously, what you do in your communities when it's based on faith, what you've done as far as creating action in those areas, getting Oscars, all sorts of amazing things here on this panel. Marcus, you and your wife serving in the military.
Can I have your autograph, DJ?
Yeah. Didn't know.
Of course.
In this. But yes, we wanted to thank you so much for being on, sharing your opinions. And again, I just wanted to touch base on what we went through. We talked about identifying these needs in our communities for creating better opportunities for families with childcare, as well as the pay that goes on both sides, the economic impact that could have, and then creating awareness on when we do identify those needs, creating that awareness and making sure everyone knows what's going on. It's not beating our chests or pounding our own backs to say that we're helping our communities. It brings awareness, and then other players and other partners can come in. So we need to build those relationships. We need to make sure that awareness is getting out there so those relationships can build. And then we really need to make sure that we're I won't say putting pressure, but reaching out to those other state and national players to help us out, to show additional support, because our communities, we definitely know there's needs in there, and we need to get to action. I know this has helped me immensely, thinking of what I can do more for my people, for our community here. And I'm sure it's done the same for all the audience watching. We're about to end here in a minute. I'll stop with each one of you just to give a quick end thank you. And Marcus, since you're unmuted, do you want to start?
Yeah, just number one, put your family first. All men, I want to say that. Put your family first, and just don't be in the place, but be present. And when it comes to taking care of your children, can't depend on nobody else to do it but you. So that's what I want to leave with. As Pedro was saying, that is important for us to be present in the lives of our children.
Thank you.
Thank you all once again for having me. This has been an amazing discussion. My quick note that I would like to leave you on is when looking to change your community, start with where you are with what you have. Don't become overwhelmed with what you can't do. Be inspired by what you can do.
Once again, thank you for having us and having me here. Thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure. And, making sure that, we put God first in our lives and family. If we have our priorities in the right order, everything else will come together. When we have our priorities in not in the right places, then that's when everything comes apart. So make sure you have your priorities first, God and family.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and appreciate all the audience being here.
This is 365 Media.